Welcome to Cyber Masterminds. I am Ryan Rial, and today we'll be talking with Adam Anderson. Adam is the founder of Hook Security, a firm that helps companies with social engineering attacks. He's also the senior advisor for Element Security Group, guiding small businesses through cybersecurity. He is also an author, serial entrepreneur, speaker, and today our guest. Adam, thank you for joining us.
I like that. You can give me introductions all the time. That guy I want to meet. He sounds like he does some stuff.
Well, we're out of time for the interview now because we.
Dang it, son of a. Well, thank you for having me here. I love the stuff that's going on over at Cyber Masterminds. I think it's critically important to build the right kind of community for cybersecurity professionals. And I'm just, dare I say, wicked excited to be here.
Yeah, no, excited to have you on, and we'll get right to it. You know, you've done so much in cybersecurity and continuing to, innovate and try new things. But first, how did you get started in cybersecurity?
I lost a bet. No, the way I got started is I was doing endpoint management, a lot of this inventorying of the laptops and keeping track of all these things. It was with a product called Tivoli, which was an IBM product at the time. Mm-hmm. And this was in 2001. So I just finished saving everyone from Y2K, and you're welcome for that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yep. A 20-year-old rocking it. So good. So the idea that actually, gosh, I was older than 20. It's tough getting older. So the thing that happens, I walked in my manager's office, is I'm super bored. I'm really bored at managing these endpoints. I'm super bored about auditing the hardware and building the spreadsheets and and pushing software packages and things like that. So he said, oh, cool. We have some needs for this thing called access management. Mm-hmm. And so in 2001, I began to work in the field of identity and access management, meaning I would control who has access to what thing, and then provision all of the roles rights. So when you did get access, I get to control what you did at the end of it. And yeah, we had no idea what we were doing. It was a whole lot of failure and many, many, many nights fixing things as I came to learn how to do all this stuff.
Wow. Okay. And then you eventually went into business for yourself. Mm-hmm. I'm probably skipping a lot there.
No, I mean, it was maybe 7 years that we're skipping. But let's be honest, one of the things that is most really just takes the energy out of a cybersecurity professional is you get this job and you think you're going to do all this great stuff, and then you become a system admin of a particular thing. Right. So instead of being a cybersecurity superstar doing red team and blue team, and I'm like standing between me and all the hackers, I clicked next and installed software. And then I managed that software to integrate with like 17,000 other software suites. And my job was not me against the hackers. It was me against corporate America's bureaucracy. And that was super depressing. So that was one of the reasons I went and started my own business. Was I wanted to have more control over the impact that I was having with the skill set that I possessed and that I had nurtured.
What prompted you to make that leap? I mean, like you said, you kind of talked about, the logic of it and, wanting to do something else, but what was the kind of kick in the pants that was like, all right, I'm doing this?
Okay, so I love where you're going, because logic doesn't make us make decisions. Emotions make us make decisions, and then we back it up with logic, right? So two significant things happened. The first one was I got divorced. And then I was like, all of a sudden, the patterns that I was locked into didn't seem all that permanent anymore. So I had the freedom to decide, do I want to do something different? And then my job was getting outsourced. Now, I wasn't in any danger, and I knew that I could sit there and I would have job security, because that is one of the wonderful things about cybersecurity is that they don't know what we're doing, and so they're afraid to fire us. So that's fantastic. But I did realize that eventually it would get to a point where I would be a line item on some chief financial officer's spreadsheet, and all he would see is my salary and he knows he has to cut something. And so I had the freedom due to my divorce to begin to really shake up how my life was. And I had the catalyst of the realization that true danger was working for a Fortune 500 who, at a stroke of a spreadsheet delete, I could lose my job. And so it was, yeah, if I'm completely honest, it was a lot of fear-based, where I just chose to be afraid of something different, where most people are afraid of going out on their own. I was terrified of staying where I was and being the person who I had been. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But for somebody who's making that leap, did you have any idea that, like, okay, I am going to be weak in this area and then I need to fix it? Or did you have some kind of inclination that, you know what, maybe I do have an acumen for doing this on my own? Or
No, I thought these suckers, these fools, they're hiring me. Oh, these idiots. And I knew I was going to be out of business in 6 months. I just knew I was going to be out of business in 6 months. So it was a consulting. So I was doing exactly what at this time I was with IBM, and I was one of IBM's road warriors doing identity and access management consulting. And by lowering the rate $40 an hour less than what IBM was charging, I had no problems finding customers, because everyone who I had worked with, now that might sound like a conflict of interest, and maybe okay, so it absolutely was. But I called my manager at the time and said, I'm planning on doing this. And his reply was, oh, cool. That sounds neat. You should do that. Now, the reason he said that, and the reason I'm putting out there, is it is very, very expensive to pay attention to a customer the way most of these major companies want to do it. And they would rather partner with the little guy who is a boutique niche player than deploy all the capital. So IBM looked at it as a win-win. But so I was absolutely positive these idiots, these fools who hired me. I'm like, I know what I'm doing as far as the technology goes, but maybe I'm being too harsh. It was literally that I had no idea what I was getting into, so I didn't know I should be scared. That's more the thing. It's not that they were idiots. It was more that, brother, I didn't bill for $70,000 for the first 3 months because I didn't know how to send an invoice.
Oh.
Right? You go into this thing, and the lessons that I had was, you will learn as you go, and you quickly scramble and you find people, and you make some mistakes, and you do two things. You do the one thing that you know how to do really well, which is deliver your product and service, and you take wildly good care of your customer with full and complete transparency. And if you do those two things, they will literally forgive everything.
Oh, it's a good business lesson right there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've done a few things since, you were not billing for $70,000, and you founded a few companies. So take us really quickly through what you've done, since you've got a couple of different, it'll be a quick drive-by.
So I was unfortunate enough to be lucky. No, I was unfortunate enough to be successful with the first company. And so that made me think I was good. And so I've launched 19 others, and 14 of them have turned into giant craters. I call that my nonprofit work, because I made no profits. I had one successful exit where I sold a company, and that has given me enough money to go do a couple others. So I founded Hook Security, which sends fake phishing attacks, but we are using psychological security, where we're bypassing the training with the cognitive brain, and we're going straight back to that survival brain. Think of it. So the reason I love this is because all of these companies that we're launching now, I'm moving away from technology. I'm moving away from how do I deploy the next software package or hardware device to protect a company, to I'm really, really concerned about the human aspect of all this. So as I've launched these companies and I've done these things, I've learned that where I want to spend my time is working on human problems. And so I find it's fascinating that as you go through this journey, you think you might be doing one thing, and then very quickly you find out that you're going to go do another thing. And after you failed and iterated enough, 20 years later, now you found out exactly what you want to do. So the projects I'm working on right now along those lines are working with psychological security and training with Hook Security.
Mhm.
We're looking at starting a global cyber court out of the British Virgin Islands, where we're trying to solve the problem of cross-jurisdiction prosecution, where I know
Mhm.
that the attack came from a foreign entity, but we have no way of actually going in there and suing them.
Mhm.
And so that's a 20-year project, right? That's not going to be solved
Right.
until 2040. But if we don't get started, and right,
Mhm.
so I've got this entrepreneurship and partnering that with the cyber and partnering that with psychological allows me to start something that's going to take 20 years
Mhm.
and think bigger. So yeah, and then the last thing that's interesting to me is the actual cybersecurity professional. So
Mhm.
I am publishing. Well, I have published a book on a lot of the behavioral science around all this, but now I want to help cybersecurity professionals increase their emotional intelligence and servant leadership, and I want to do that for
Mhm.
two reasons. The first reason is I really, really, really want the cybersecurity professional to be able to have a successful career. And
Mhm.
the number one problem with cybersecurity right now is we don't know how to communicate with the business.
Mhm.
So getting more emotional intelligence, getting more servant leadership really helps with the, and I'll use air quotes, the nerds' ability to talk to the business people.
Mhm.
Because when you begin to speak in business terms and using emotional intelligence and servant leadership, they don't look at you as a nerd anymore. They look at you as a valued colleague.
Mhm.
And the second reason this is super important, my personal experience is all of the nerds that I hired, I had 20 rock star consultants who were in their mid 20s. And not a single one of them had a girlfriend. So I was like, okay, we got to get you some emotional intelligence and people
Mhm.
skills because this is a stressful job and you need to have solid relationships. So I say that tongue in cheek, but really, when you look at it, when you're in the middle of what we do and you don't have the ability to build emotionally stable support structures around you so that you can keep going in whatever it is that your chosen field is, you've got a real problem. So
Mhm.
yeah, those are the primary things I'm most interested in, is the human aspect of all this, the cross-border political geo blah blah blahs,
Mhm.
and getting more dates for cybersecurity professionals.
I'm sure that's something a lot of our viewers could get behind. But in terms of that sounded really bad. I didn't mean it like that.
No, it came out exactly how you meant it, and I understand that. It's all good.
But the best way I've ever heard it put was the emotional side of that is, IQ. Everybody knows what IQ is. Everybody gets that. Everybody understands it. And then
Yeah.
EQ is something that the emotional side, right? The part that you're not necessarily using your brain, like you were talking about earlier. Logic doesn't make decisions. Emotion makes decisions. So that is what you are trying to really take an interest in and push to the next level for these professionals. Now, I'm curious for you personally, is that something that as you got farther away from the tech side, you got into and wanted to help other people with, or was it more just a progression of your, learning more and getting out there?
Well, kind of. So my father was in the Air Force, and his job in the Air Force was family advocacy and social working, which basically is him being in charge of combat stress, death and dying, psychological warfare, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so by the way, that's a fun dad to have growing up because anyway,
Right.
yeah.
Missing the bus doesn't sound like much of a problem then.
Yeah. He's a rock star. He's my hero. If I can be half the father he was, I would be. I'm crushing it. But I grew up, and his statement to me was, Adam, I don't care how smart you are. I don't care what you accomplish scholastically. If you master emotional intelligence and how to work with people, then you've mastered the world. And you don't, right? Because if I know how to have emotionally, if I'm emotionally self-aware to understand who I am and what I'm trying to do, and I can communicate effectively with other people, then the smartest guy in the room should not be me. The smartest guy in the room should be somebody else who I can have a good conversation with and get that person's help. When I can do that, then I have zero limits on what I can accomplish. Where with IQ, you can make amazing things and you can write amazing code and you can do all this stuff, but you're still only going to ever be as good as you are. But with EQ, I can get a lot of high IQ people in a room, and we can get a whole lot of cool stuff done. So the ultimate is the high EQ with a high IQ, and they're not mutually exclusive. So if you are one of these super high IQ people, good news, the emotional operating system of the human brain is something you can hack. You can absolutely do that. That's how social engineering works. This is not touchy-feely, sit on the floor going, this is biochemistry in your body, having neurons and stuff firing off in your brain, and understanding how what you believe and what you see will trigger chemicals in your body that will cause you to have reactions. And the emotion is the software that's on top of your hardware, which is the brain, which is the body. So for those of you out there who are very much against feelings, and you're very confused, why did they react that way? Well, if you had code that didn't work, you'd figure it out. And the human brain is code. It's amazing. It's a great thing. You should study it, and then you should learn to master it, and then build a whole lot of amazing connections. Because right now, your genius, you could have the highest IQ in the world. Matter of fact, my favorite example of this is from Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers, I believe it is. He discussed a study where this guy with super high IQ and who was going to change the world of physics or economics, but he was such a, I believe the medical term was asshole, that nobody would give him a chance. Meanwhile, there's another guy who has less of an IQ, still super genius, tried to kill one of his teachers, but he was charming, and he had social graces, and he understood the IQ, and he had all the things. And so it is not enough to have IQ. And if you have something important to bring to the world, and you have created something with that amazing brain of yours, and you don't know how to talk to human beings about it, you have just limited yourself significantly from the impact you can have on the world. So that's the kind of thing that motivated me when I saw all these brilliant people around me. And I had that understanding from what my father taught me around emotional intelligence is there's a flood of genius that is not reaching the world because these amazing people with these amazing ideas cannot have that successful conversation and bridge that teeny tiny gap between people.
That's really interesting. And that's something that Cyber Masterminds groups are working to do and put into practice. But for somebody who's watching this, who would like, a first step or a good place to start besides that, is there something that you suggest?
Yeah, well, you could always go out and read my books and do all that stuff. But I mean, let's be honest, they're not selling well, guys. They're not selling well. So don't go and read my books. However, I believe that we could probably link to this. We've done 2 talks on emotional intelligence and on how that helps your careers. So maybe we can link to those. Yeah. They were on a recent Cyber Careers virtual summit. And, but emotional intelligence books, go out and read them. Go take a look at your Enneagrams and take some personality assessments. But the problem with these personality assessments, and I'm saying this with a grain of salt, you'll take one of these things and you're like, this is me. This is how I am. I'm an ENJKWLMOP. And now that's who I am. And bam. And so I have permission to act like this. When you're trying to get some self-awareness, and you're trying to get to know yourself, it's important to understand that you're in process. There is no, this is who I am. This is only who you are right now. And, yeah, I do believe that the best thing to do is go and read Emotional Intelligence 2.0 is out there. That's a great book. Check out our talks. But yeah, why don't I do this? I will think of a few more resources and I will send them your way.
Okay, put them in there.
It's difficult to think of it when I kind of was just raised in the whole thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. And the other thing I've heard regarding cybersecurity professionals, maybe earlier in their career or looking to take the next step, is the emotional side for sure, but also knowing a little bit more about either one thing or the business side, or like I've talked to some people where they're like, you know what, working in a help desk was super helpful later on doing cybersecurity because I knew how to talk to people, or I knew how this came up, or I was a system administrator and this was super helpful for later when I didn't realize it would be. How much did that factor in for you, and how much would you recommend maybe stepping out of one thing?
Yeah, I would go a little farther though. So the logic and the thought process around, hey, I was in the help desk and I talked to a lot of people and I had to develop social skills. And by the way, being in help desk also teaches you organizational awareness, because the people who are doing the business call you to solve their problems. So you learn about the business. So I love help desk. As a concept, I've never done it. To me, that was like, oh, that's a lot of stress. I'm not going to do that. Jeez.
Sure.
So, but what that is it's saying, look, it's a service-based industry on help desk where you're helping somebody out. So if you were going to be bold, go get a night job being a waiter or a bartender for 6 months. You will get all the EIQ you need. Right? Because that is tough. If you're in the service industry, so I cut my teeth in the service industry working at amusement parks.
Okay.
In high school, I worked at Miracle Strip Amusement Park and I was on the games. So there was the guys who did the rides and then the guys who ran the games. Like when you go to Six Flags or go to one of these places and you play the games and you lose everything, I'm the guy who made you happy while you were doing that so that you would give me another dollar. And that taught me how to connect with folks. Also, go take some improv classes. Go find these things outside of it. So that was the social connection. The other part about the sysadmin, cybersecurity people typically are kind of good at literally everything inside of IT because we have to be responsible for deploying effective controls around everything. So by the time I was done with identity and access management work, about 5 years into it, I was a pretty decent okay DBA. I was a pretty decent okay LDAP, Cisco, right? So yeah, you could get some value if you were a network admin and then you went to cyber. But I wouldn't let that stop you. I wouldn't say do that first, because who cares? You still have 17,000 other things to learn. The important part about being a cybersecurity professional is to understand your role inside of the organization, to give really good advice on the security controls that are required to protect that organization's business processes and systems, and then work inside of a team to make it done. Your manager is going to tell you what to do when you first enter. You learn what that person tells you to do and then go after it. Now, one caveat to that is if you're just getting into the cybersecurity industry and you're competing with other people for a particular job, sure, having some Cisco background, some Unix background, some of that stuff is, nice. It might help. But again, it's hard to say. Sure. It definitely doesn't hurt.
Okay. I want to dive back a little bit into your past, because there's something that you talked about that I've read was really interesting to me. You went to the University of Utah, correct, for music.
Yeah, go Utes.
And you decided that's something you didn't want to do. And I think you said something about how your parents were very apprehensive, or they weren't sure that was the right move. For you, you were talking about having a plan. Somebody watching this who is trying to figure out what's next, or they're trying to improve, and having a plan. Can you talk about maybe coming up with something or figuring out when to deploy that?
Sure. There's two realities. One reality is when you are a person who has extensive experience and a track record, then nobody cares about your degrees and nobody cares about your certifications, because they see you've been doing the thing for 8 years and people have paid you money and you've been being promoted. And so boom. But if you don't have that, if you don't have 8 to 10 years experience as a rock star and you're just getting started, your plan has got to include tickets. You're going to ride this ride and you have to have some kind of ticket. And the university system is one way to get tickets. Professional certifications is another way to get tickets. So when I was developing my plan, what I saw was, holy geez, I'm in college 2 years and I've switched majors 8 times. I've failed computer science. No, intro to Unix, I have failed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a credit, no credit. And it's simply that I couldn't be bothered to show up to class.
Mm-hmm.
I did better in computer science 201 because I had one of my friends write all my code and submit it for me because I was busy playing StarCraft. It's a
Mm-hmm.
new game. I had to get it done. The Zerg weren't going to kill themselves.
Right.
Somebody had to do it.
Right.
So I quickly realized, oh, this is not fast paced enough for me. I cannot maintain my attention for how they're going. I like fire hose, give me all the information, let me absorb it, let me move on. So where I ended up was getting my Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer, my MCSP,
Yeah.
that thing, whatever, MCSP. I'm still not sure I'm saying it right. Doesn't matter. Microsoft Systems Certified person who does the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great because it was 6 weeks. It was 6 weeks of classes. Each class was a certification. I would take the class, take the test, move on. Boom, boom, boom. And by the time I was done, I thought that I was prepared for the workforce, that I knew how to do things and I was ready to go. Part of your plan needs to be a little bit of self-awareness and humility. That means thinking about not too much and not too little. It's accurate. Getting a certification in something means that you are ready to learn how to do it, not that you are a master at it. Getting a certification in something means I can talk the talk and I can report on what's going on. I can do all this, but I really have no idea how to apply this in the real world. So I'm not trying to say don't get your certifications, but also don't go in and overpromise the world just because you have a certification. Come in accurately and be like, this is my first gig. I got my certifications. Very familiar with. I'm an incredibly hard worker. I'm going to learn very quickly. But new company XYZ who's about to hire me, I need to know about your professional certification, professional development programs, because I have more work I'm going to do on myself. So if you're not, it's part of my plan was do my self work, get my certifications, do the thing I need to do to get through the door. But whoever I worked with, I also requested that they also had a continuous development. And so throughout my career, when I was working for other people, part of my plan was you keep sending me the training, you keep improving me as a person, and I will eventually leave you and make my own money. Oh, that didn't work out for them. I'm sure it did. Actually, I'm sure it worked out just fine. They got a lot of value while I was there.
Yeah. Yeah. And if it didn't, and you're on, it's not your problem anymore. And right.
Well, I mean that is where I was heading. I don't think I liked where I was heading, so I backtracked. But no, thanks for bringing us back. Yeah.
So you have all of these irons in these fires, and you're all over the place. How do you make sure you're on top of what you need to be on top of, stay productive and stay developing? There are daily habits that you do or things that you pay attention to?
I get up at 5 a.m. every morning. I do 30 minutes of stretching and mobility stuff because for some reason, when I hit 43 years old, stuff stopped working and you cannot just roll into the gym. So then I do about 30 minutes of, meditation / quiet time / journaling, grateful for these things. And just so by the time 6 o'clock rolls around, I've got about an hour of good stuff in it. That's typically when I'm tempted to open email. So I do not. I go get my guitar or I go and do something else that is reading something that I should, I take the first 2 hours of the day for me. Okay. The first 2 hours of the day, I do not pick up my phone. I do not look at email. I do not look at social media. I take care of my body. I take care of my mind. I take care of my soul. And by doing that, the rest of the day is a layup. There's literally nothing that happens the rest of the day I don't feel like I can handle. Mm-hmm. And part of that is visualizing in the beginning of the day what I want the rest of the day to look like. And so by the time my workday starts, I've got a really good idea of what I need to accomplish that day. It's and then I make sure that I limit my productive days to accomplishing maybe 1 or 2 tasks. Rather than trying to blast through a whole bunch of stuff. And they might be, create video content and I have to get at least, 14 videos done. Maybe that's the thing. But I know at the end of the day, if I can get those things done, I'm good and I don't need to worry about anything else. The second thing is I also partner with amazing people. So if you're going to do a big vision, like build the world's first ever cross-jurisdiction cyber court, there's nothing, you can't do it on your own. You have to
Right.
build a team. And so when you have a lot of irons in the fire, or you've got a lot of things you need to do, you have to build a team of effective support people, or better yet, a team of people who are superior at leadership than you are. So I've got 2 companies running right now, and the reason I can do that is because one of them is under professional management by a CEO who is better than I am at CEOing. I am a pretty decent startup CEO. I can get companies up and running, but then taking them to the next step, that's really something somebody else should do.
Mhm.
And so you can have a lot of irons in the fire if you know when to let go of the iron, when you know it's time for you to go move on to something else. One of the traps that we often find ourselves falling into is, oh, I've got to do all these things and I am the one who has to do them. And as long as you're the one who has to do, you mind if I do a Clemson football reference? Because I
Sure.
feel like we should. I feel like we
Sure.
should. Dabo can't win these championships without players.
Mhm.
He can't win them without coaches, right?
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, you cannot do an amazing thing that's complex without learning how to work with other people. And so, to me, that's again the punchline: is effective partnerships, effective teamwork, and and most importantly, a clearly defined vision of what success looks like for long term
Mhm.
and short term. Because every one of us has looked at our friends and said, anybody want to go to lunch? I'm like, yeah, we can go to lunch. Okay, cool. Where do you guys want to go? Bam! No, wrong answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, wrong question. Wrong question. No one's going to, they don't automatically all say Chipotle, right? That
Right.
never happens. So if you're leading, then you have to lead. And that
Mhm.
is, hey guys, I'm thinking we're going to go get Mexican. Who wants to go? We got 3 choices. 1, 2, 3. Let's get votes.
Mhm.
Whoever has the highest votes is where we're going to go. Boom, boom, boom. Cool. We're going to on the border.
Mhm.
That is what is required: is a clear direction, a framework to operate in, and then support with everybody, where you're actually nurturing. Your voice is still important. I need to hear you, but at the end of the day, I'm going to make a decision. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. It's a lot of stuff. Hopefully people are taking notes, because that's a lot of good stuff that you're talking about. And I'm curious, is there something in the past, maybe a book you read, or somebody who spoke that you really thought like, oh, wow, that's it. That's the key. Or, that's something I'm definitely going to use.
Oh, there's so many, so many. I'll rattle off a couple of really good ones.
Mm-hmm.
If you are doing entrepreneurship, or if you want to know how businesses function so that you can know where do you play, read a book called Ready, Fire, Aim: 0 to 100 million in no time flat. The guy breaks down the different phases of business, breaks down what's important at each phase, and that will let you know what you should be looking at when you're trying to help a business stay safe.
Mm-hmm.
Or teaches you how to go launch your own cybersecurity company. Go get it, guys. Go get it, gals. Second one is Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. It's worth it just for the first 15 pages, where he describes a A-10 Warthog supporting a bunch of ground troops flying through clouds, and it's all about leadership and the biochemistry
Mm-hmm.
of tribal mentality. How do we support each other? Why are there alphas? Why are there betas? Why is this pecking order important? And where do we go with it? Right. Probably the last book would be my wife's bride, In Bed with the Business: The Entrepreneurial Spouse's Survival Guide.
Mm.
If you're going to start your own business, read that first and realize what you're about to put your partner through.
That's a good
Yeah.
tip. Good thing. Because I think what we've talked about, being so focused on bettering yourself in business and your emotional side, sometimes it's easy to lose track of the people around you when you're trying to form those relationships.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There's so many CISO buddies of mine, so many top echelon guys who have made amazing careers, senior VPs, uh, destroyed their families to get there.
Mm.
These folks are divorced. These folks are estranged from their children, and they are getting their value from providing security executive services to corporations that don't care about them.
Mm.
It is a really dangerous thing to be wildly successful at something that you turn out you don't even care about.
Wow. That's very profound. It's very heavy. Okay.
You know, just sprinkling wisdom.
I love it. I love it. Well, Adam, we're running out of time, but is there something that you really wish people would know? It's kind of cliche to say, you know, if there's only one thing that you take away from this, but what would be the one thing that you want people to know?
Really, it does go back to a lot of what we've been talking about. This stuff is exhausting. You're learning so much, and the weight of the world is on your shoulders. If you screw up your job and something goes wrong, the bad guys win. And sure, it's not just you. A lot of things have to go wrong, but it is still sitting on your shoulders. And so if you do not become emotionally, spiritually, and physically healthy, you will not have the energy to accomplish whatever your mission happens to be. And maybe it's cybersecurity, standing on the front lines in the new cyber war, or the existing cyber war is a better way of putting it. Or maybe you have a nonprofit you're trying to launch. Whatever it is, if you don't find a way to take care of yourself, you won't have the energy or the bandwidth to go take care of your mission, your family, and your community.
Wise words again. I appreciate it. Adam, where can people find you if they want to know more?
You should totally go to adamandersonceo.com, or you can check out my YouTube channel, Adam Anderson CEO. I like to drop 1-minute business videos and then deep wisdom like you've been hearing about cybersecurity and the world of cybersecurity. And very soon I will be launching a training course on emotional intelligence for the cybersecurity professional. That is a 2020 thing. So keep heading back to adamandersonceo.com. And if you would like to be notified when it's ready, I will have a little landing page. Matter of fact, let's say this. You go to adamandersonceo.com/CMM for Cyber Masterminds. And I will have a sign-up link there that you can get notified when the course on emotional intelligence, servant leadership, and operational awareness comes out.
Fantastic. Adam Anderson, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. See you guys.
Thank you. For more talks like that and how you can help your professional career in cybersecurity, visit cybermasterminds.com.